So, thank you guys for coming here. It means a lot that so many friends and family would show up to hear my thoughts on some things. Most of you have guessed, know the title. Where do we come from? Where do we go? Any guesses? I'll just tell you. An accident? A cosmic mistake? Or maybe by a God who loves us? Is heaven just a place where our souls will live on clouds and play harps? Is hell an eternal torture chamber? All the big questions we want to ask. And before I forget, so just to reiterate, I am going to record this. If that doesn't make, I'm going to try and record this. If that is cool with y'all, because there are some people who would like to be here who cannot. Does that make anyone uncomfortable? Okay. Mark doesn't count. All right. What's that, dear?
That's my pick. You got it.
Type. Okay. So, where are we here? I'm still figuring out. I'm new at the technical things, so give me a hot sec. All right, there we go. So, I haven't done something like this exactly before. This is why, one of the reasons I went to seminary. I thought I wanted to teach high schoolers, but pretty shortly into my seminary career, I did a Strength Finders test and it said you shouldn't be a teacher. Now I do love presentations, and I do think I thrive on this. This is what I get excited for. But what is this going to look like? I hope this isn't just me talking at you. I do have things, I have thoughts, I have questions I want to ask, I have things I want to bring forth to you guys, because this is something that I've spent a lot of time exploring, and there are things that I have learned that have helped my faith a lot, or just helped me grow and have a healthier understanding or view of God and the planet. But these are my opinions. I'm not here to speak for real life fellowship. You know, real life is defined by, as our fine leadership team would say, real life is defined or united by our center, which is Christ. Not by our boundaries, by the things that we're going to try and say, hey, this is what we believe and what you must believe. So there's going to be room for disagreement. There's going to be things that I say that I don't like very much, and things that I believe that I'm not always comfortable with. And so this is a place that, I really hope there's room for pushback, for hard questions. I'm not here to just give you a hard pill to swallow, but hopefully, what my hope or my prayer is that we can remove some barriers that keep us from being able to trust or love God, not put up new barriers for you that are going to make that happen. So, any questions? Hi! I asked if we could move the session earlier, and they're like, it should be fine. The other church will probably be done by then, but hey, that's okay. Okay. Let me see okay, I gotta actually fix something on my end here. And see my notes. Okay, here we go. So, why this class? Originally, I wanted to have a class, how would I say this? I was going for a bike ride with my buddy Adam Robert, whom I think all of you know. And we were going for a bike ride, and he's like, hey, if you had more time in your day, what would you do? And I was like, I think I'd teach a class on hell. And he said, cool. And then the next day, I got a call from Jason, and he's like, hey, would you ever consider teaching a class at RLF? And I was like, oh, you talking to Adam? And he's like, no. So I was like, interesting. So that's not a divine sign that whatever I have to say is true or good or worthwhile, but it was, to me, just something really encouraging that got me really excited. Like, oh, maybe this is the right direction. Maybe this is something to do. So, why do I care about this subject? First of all, this is not just going to be a class about hell. Like I said, this is going to be a class about creation, and Christ and heaven and all sorts of fun stuff. Originally, it started with I had like OCD fixation on this topic, and I ran into family on Christmas who thought differently than I. Like I grew up very much like what formed my faith was hell is an eternal conscious torture chamber, essentially. And then one Christmas, I was talking with some family who was pushing back, and I was like, "How can you think differently? What happened? You know, how could you have deviated so far from the truth?" So that's one of the reasons why I went to seminary. I was interested in how do people think differently, but I was also mostly interested in how do I have answers to prove people wrong. I think I've become a little more open-minded because especially as I dove deeper and deeper into these studies, into this subject, the cracks in the foundation started to grow, and I started to see things a little bit differently. So we're going to get there, we're going to explore all this stuff. So let's move on. C.S. Lewis, he's got a lot of good things to say. He says, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilization, these are mortal. And their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals who we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors and everlasting splendors." He's very quotable. What do you guys think? Any questions? I'm not looking for big insight. I'll give you another one. I'm sure all your favorite pastor.
I want to change seats. These two are annoying.
You're welcome to.
Listen.
John MacArthur. "The biggest question that will ever be answered is the question, which way to heaven? And the most important decision that anybody will ever make is the decision that they make regarding their eternal destiny. Life here on earth, says the Bible, is a vapor that appears for a little time and vanishes away. It is like a steam off a cup of coffee, nothing more compared to eternity. Everyone will live somewhere forever without end. Where you live is absolutely critical. There are two options, hell and eternal punishment, or heaven and eternal joy. The question then is, which way to heaven?" Or, in the words of the philosopher Gary Larson, he has something so applicable for just about any slide. So I give these primers, these quotes, because I think that within them are some unhealthy assumptions. First off, is that the physical world that we live in now is bad, is evil. Our bodies are just these evil, walking sin mutations, and what is good is our spirit. And we are going to be, the idea is that we would be, our spirit will be liberated from our body. The second one is everybody lives forever, and the end goal is that our spirit is liberated from our body and lives in the physical plane of heaven, or the spiritual realm of heaven. And on the inverse side, or the converse side of that, is that hell consists in eternal conscious torment, or it's an eternal conscious experience. I think that these assumptions that are pretty common within Western Christianity breed unhealthy views of our bodies, unhealthy views of the world, and unhealthy views of God, and can turn what the Bible puts forth as a loving father to a sadistic monster. That's fighting words, but we're going to explore that. Come on in, Coco. So, I don't have anything more to say there. We're going to move on. So, here's what I'm going to suggest are some better beliefs. Here we go. The physical world is good. Life is a gift not a given. So that idea is, if you just FYI, if you guys want to take a couple pies and some treats and just bring them all over there, then you have more than you need. That'd be great. You're welcome to be here, though. So I'm going to suggest that we don't all inherently live forever. Our souls are not immortal. But life, as we know it now, is a gift from God. And life continued on eternally is a gift. It's not a given. So the phrase that would often be known for, it's conditioned. That would be a phrase called conditional immortality. We're going to get into that in like session 3, probably. Today, we're mostly just going to be focusing on point 1, that the physical world is good. The next point, eternal life with God is a physical, embodied state on the new heavens and new earth. So it's not a spiritual realm that our spirits are going to float up to, but that when Christ returns, the world is made new, and that we have bodies. We can jump, we can feel things, we can eat things, we can have pleasures, we can explore the world. We're not just going to be playing our harps for all eternity. We're playing our accordions for all eternity. Lastly, and this is going to be maybe the most contentious point, and where there might be the most disagreement, and you're welcome to push back. I am going to argue that hell results in the cessation of life, but that it is not an eternal torture chamber or eternal conscious torment. So, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go back about 3,000 years. We're going to talk about something called the Enuma Elish. Has anyone ever heard of this? Maggie has, because I've talked to her a lot about it when I've been rehearsing things. So, the Enuma Elish is a ancient Babylonian creation epic. It is super old. It was written anywhere, it's believed to have been written anywhere between 700 and 1200 BCE, depending on who you ask. But the story, the oral tradition, is believed to be much older than that, maybe as far back as 1800 BCE. It was discovered by a British archaeologist in around 1850 in the ruined library of King Ashurbanipal. It was in these clay, I believe it was clay tablets, and in order to remove them, in order to get these big pieces that were heavy, and I don't know if they were buried in something, in order to remove them, he took an axe to them to kind of break them up and load them up and ship them off to the mainland. In doing so, there's some chunks missing of this cuneiform writing that we can't read, and we just have to guess what it says. But once it was translated, which took about 30 years to decipher, because cuneiform was this newly discovered, or at least had never been, I believe it had never been translated before. Once it was translated, boom, it scared a lot of people, especially Christians, people of the faith. And here's why. The Enuma Elish, this is a rough paraphrase. When on high, the heavens had not been named, and earth beneath had not come into being. There was chaos. Fresh water and salt water had not been divided, but mingled together. There was no field or marsh to be seen. When of the gods none had been called into being, Apsu and Tiamat created the gods in the midst of heaven. But these gods were loud and would not allow them rest. So Apsu told his mate Tiamat that he would destroy them so that they would have peace. But Apsu was slain before he could do this, and Tiamat swore to avenge him. But from among the gods, Marduk arose, and the lesser gods agreed that if he should defeat Tiamat, Marduk would rule and they would serve him. Marduk then shot a great wind to force open the mouth of Tiamat, and he cast his spear down her throat, slaying her. Splitting Tiamat's body in half, he made the sky with the top half of her body, And keeping open up your eyes, this part's important. He made the sky with the top half of her body, and with the bottom half, he made the earth. So the top half kept out the waters above, and the bottom half kept out the waters below. He arranged the stars in the sky, and appointed Samos, the sun god, and Nanar, the moon god, to set the days and mark the time. From the eyes of Tiamat flowed the Tigris and Euphrates. With the bottom half of Tiamat, he created the earth, he kept out the waters below. And Marduk said, "Let me put blood together, and make some bones too. Man shall be his name. The work of the gods shall be imposed on him, so that the gods may be at leisure." So Kingu, who was loyal to Tiamat, was executed. And taking blood from his corpse and clay, humans were formed in order to relieve the gods their hard labors, so that the gods might be served and rest. By serving the gods and doing their labors, we may win their favor and their blessing. We scratch them, and they scratch us. So, the Enuma Elish is this creation epic that gives this articulation of how the world was made. This is the kind of the ancient Near East understanding of cosmology, what the world is. So you can imagine Tiamat's body is right up here. Top half of her body is way up here, keeping out the ocean of heaven. There's all these waters above. Where does the rain come from? It comes from the waters above. So her body keeps out these waters. That's at the beginning was Apsu and Tiamat, the fresh water and salt water. All there was this great water. So it needed to be divided. It needed to be split up so that there can be the place that we live in now. Her body holds up the water up high. Her body holds out the water below. And Marduk places the stars in the sky. Y'all tracking with me?
Yep.
All right, so now we're going to read this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under from the vault over it. Did I read that right? So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. There it is. And God said, "Let there be lights in the sky, in the vault of the sky, to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years." God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars, and God saw that it was good. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden, and there it separated into 4 headwaters, including the Tigris and Euphrates. What do you guys notice?
Plagiarism. Might just listen.
What's similar about it?
Most obviously the dividing of the heavens waters and earth's waters.
Mm-hmm.
And the location, they're seeing everything from Middle East area because of the rivers that they reference.
Yes. They both are from that place. They both give here's where these rivers came from. They're both trying to explain where that is. There's more similarities somewhere.
The stars in the skies being placed.
Yes. Yep. And they govern the times and the seasons. Also, you wouldn't know it from this presentation that I did. The Enuma Elish was written, or at least composed in I believe it was 7, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was composed in 7 different movements or tablets. And the Genesis account, how does that happen? How does God create the world? In what time frame?
7 days.
7 days. Does that make you guys nervous? No? Okay.
I can see where it might have to people 100, 200 years ago.
It seems,
We have a lot more information now than we did then.
yeah, it seems, from what we know, it does seem that the Genesis account, the earliest copies of Genesis that we have, seem to be newer than the oldest copies of the Enuma Elish. So that freaks some people out. Is this plagiarism? We're going to move to the next slide. So, yeah, here we go. So there's this both of them have a chaos, void, these waters. God, the Spirit of God hovers over the waters. Apsu and Tiamat are these water gods. The ordering of the sun, moon, and stars. So in both of them, earth is used to create humans. Dust in terms with, let's see here, God in the Genesis account uses dust. Marduk uses clay. They're both tasked with care for the world. And those rivers are named, 7 tablets. So, does it make a difference what was written first? Or does it make a difference what was written first? There it is. So, if we want to, for those who hold to a Christian faith, they could say, well, maybe there's even older copies of Genesis that we just haven't found yet. That's possible, sure. That has happened many times over where, hey, it seems like this city that was in the Bible has never been found. It must be a fictitious city. This thing in the Bible never happened. And then hundreds of years later, they discover it and say, oh, it turns out this town did exist. So that is possible. It could be that Genesis came first as a physical, written copy, and then the Enuma Elish copied that. It could be that Genesis, the story of Genesis, as we know it today, existed as an oral tradition. Stories are passed down. I'm going to tell you, you tell your children, you tell your children's children, blah, 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 blah. But it's not written down because, hey, we don't know how to write things yet, but the Babylonians just happened to figure out cuneiform before we have figured out how to do things. So that's possible. It could just be that the Genesis account is strictly plagiarism, just a ripoff of the Enuma Elish, and there is no actual truth to the account. It's just a story that these Hebrew people made because they wanted to have a claim for, hey, this is our land, or our God is going to fight for us, or whatever it is. Or, and this is what I believe, maybe the Genesis account is older than the Enuma Elish, maybe. But I think the Genesis account is actually a cooler story and has a lot more to say if we see the Genesis account as God's baby talk to us. There's a story that all these people in the ancient Near East are familiar with. And the Enuma Elish, there's even older versions that seem of that story that seem to have inspired that, some Sumerian ones. So there's stories that live in this big land of the ancient Near East. And I am going to argue that God met these people in the time and place that they were at, with a language that they understood, with a cosmology that they understood. Hey, you see that? There's the rain comes down. There's this firmament is the term it would be used. This firmament keeps out the water, and there's all these stars and sun arranged underneath it. Sure, I'll work with what you got. So I'm kind of borrowing the phrase baby talk from Calvin, John Calvin. He calls the Bible, in general, God's baby talk. If there is this being who has existed eternally, who is outside of time and can speak the world into existence, he's this God, this being, is going to relate to us or communicate to us in terms that we can understand. Just like those of you with children, it's a lot easier to sometimes give a simple answer to your kids so that they kind of understand things instead of trying to explain hey, this is how a car works. This is how ignition, when I turn this key, this is gonna, fire this ignition, this is gonna turn these pistons, blah, 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 blah. I just say, yep, I just press this pedal and I go. We're not gonna give them all the details because they can't track with us. So I think we can understand, if we use the framework of the Bible, this is really what started to change my perspective broadly from being, I was never a fundamentalist, but I had more of a, I don't want to say wooden, but a stricter view of Scripture and trying to take everything, not literally, but if you've heard of the phrase proof texting, or kind of essentially trying to build a systematic theology from one little verse and say, oh, if God said this, it must mean X, Y, Z, Z, blah, 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 blah. And instead of just saying, maybe, like, this is true, there's truth to it, but maybe God is trying to give this to us in terms that we can understand, that we can comprehend. And maybe if, yes, dear? What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, this may be slightly off topic, but if we're talking about the Enuma Elish and the Genesis creation story, do we have room to talk about the Vedas?
Let's circle back to that, because I have nothing, well, let me say this. I will have an answer for any question you ask, and that answer might be I don't know.
Sure.
I have nothing to contribute to that conversation, but in a nutshell, what is
Because,
that?
well, the Vedas are kind of a Hindu Bible of sorts, and they're credited of being the oldest religious text. And they are hymns, so they are more of a poetic sense. So we were talking about which one was older and the relevance of that. I felt like, well, maybe that there may be some relevance in the Vedas that could also shed some discussion that may be relevant to the Enuma Elish and also the Genesis creation story.
I'm sure there's a lot there. I thought about trying to give more of a, like, hey, here's like 3 or 4 different creation accounts from all these different places or traditions. And I really just zeroed in on this one just because it's often the example that may be used of, oh, Genesis is a ripoff of this. Just for more of the conversation starter, because I think that if we understand the Bible as kind of God's baby talk, we can kind of see, what is God concerned with here? Is God interested in telling us exactly how the world was made? Hey, I did it in 6 literal 24-hour days, and then on the 7th day I rested. And I did it in exactly this order. Or is God trying to give us a framework to understand who God is, who we are, and like an understanding that God created? And I think that is the takeaway. That's what I'm going to claim. What's most important is that God did it, rather than how God did it. And when we get quite caught up on questions of how exactly did this happen, asking questions like, oh, well, the Bible says that God did this on day 1, this on day 2, and then Adam came, and then his descendants, therefore the world must be 4,000 years old, therefore these fossils of dinosaurs that seem to be millions of years old must be just God playing a trick on us, which is literally something people have said. Which, come on, guys. And still say, yeah. So if we're trying to ask questions of Genesis that it's not trying to answer, we're going to get some weird answers. If we're trying to ask, where did dinosaurs come from? Genesis has nothing to say about that. If we're trying to ask, how old is the earth? We're really not interested in going there. What I believe the book of Genesis is interested in is, who are we? Who is God? Or put it differently, where do we come from? Where do we go? I'm just going to end the class there. I got a lot more to say. I wish I had a mic that I could drop. Yeah, thank you, Jay. So I'm going to say that it's God's baby talk, and also I forgot to put this up there, God's smack talk. And we're going to go there. So here's some smack talk coming up. Anytime you make a comment, Maggie, I really want to, I want to go, what? That's really difficult. Especially when you're talking about Chris. Me. So, in the Enuma Elish, we're going to circle back to Genesis, but in the Enuma Elish, who is God? Anyone? Any answers?
Tika and Marduk.
You're really close.
Okay.
Wanna kill me.
Tiamat, there's Tiamat and Apsu.
Okay.
Apsu, yeah.
What happened to Tiamat and Apsu?
Tiamat got split in half.
She got split in half. What happened to Apsu? You didn't really know, but he got murdered in his sleep by Marduk. I think Marduk killed him in his sleep. No, someone else killed him in his sleep. Doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to some people. It doesn't matter right now. So who's God?
Tiamat is the female representative, correct?
Yes.
So that I find that very interesting in the fact that like she's kind of part of the creation of the world, right?
Yes.
Like, there's a female origin of life in that story, and I think that's really interesting.
And also, essentially like Mother Earth.
Yes.
If you in kind of a
Yes.
literal way, her body is used to form the earth you walk on. And her body is used to keep out the water above. So Apsu and Tiamat make all these other gods. These kids, essentially, they're too loud. Apsu's like, I want to sleep. Let's kill our children. Tiamat's like, no, don't do that. But then, learning of this murderous plan that, hey, Dad wants to kill us, one of these gods kills Apsu in his sleep, and then Tiamat's like, you know what, screw you kids, I'm pissed that you killed Dad, I'm going to murder all of you, and Marduk kills her. And because he killed her, he's the champion god. All the other gods, his siblings, I said lesser gods, I shouldn't have said that. All these other gods, his siblings, say, all right, you're the chief, we're going to serve you. But they're all of the same substance. It's not like Apsu, Marduk, there was Marduk, in the beginning was Marduk, and then he made all these other ones. He was brought into being just like all these other ones. Go ahead.
And in what space is this happening again?
In what space? That's a great question, because if it's like there is nothing but there is water, there's the fresh water and the salt water, and then these gods kill each other, and then there's this physical plane that we can exist on. It's in the God realm. I'm just going to say that. I'm not sure. So there is no one like the original creators, Apsu and Tiamat, have been slain. Marduk then kills Tiamat. He's the chief god. He did make the world, and he appointed the sun and the moon as these deities. There's the sun god Nanar and Samas, the moon god. I might have that backwards. And the sun and the moon are gods, or representations of a god, something like that. The earth is a body of a slain god, and humans are essentially given slave labor or like this drudgery. They're tasked to do the work of the gods so that the gods can rest. Marduk, he's the chief, he's the champion, but he's no different in kind from his siblings. In Genesis, the cosmology is nearly identical, with one exception. This picture is a little different, but it shows exactly the same thing. There's this firmament, the firmament being this right here, this dome that's keeping out the waters above. There's the earth keeping out the waters beneath. The only difference is that instead of a god, well, one of the differences, instead of a god making up the earth, making up the firmament, God speaks the earth into existence. He places the vault in the sky, but God himself is entirely separate from the cosmos, from the world that we know, we can't travel in a spaceship to go find him up there. There's God, and then there's everything else. God, unlike Marduk, he's outside of creation, an entirely different substance than creation. He's not made from other elements of creation. He's alone in the beginning. In the beginning, God did these things. And the Genesis claim is that there are no other gods other than Yahweh, the God of the Hebrew people. So he's not this champion that arose from amongst the gods. He's the only one. His name, Yahweh, or how he introduces himself. reveals himself. The name is I Am, which is many words I'm sure could be said about that. Much ink has been spilled, but I Am is just this declaration. I take that as this declaration of like this pre-existent, out of time God who always is and always will be. And that's what God claims to be in more explicit terms. We already said this, but the earth is not made of an act of violence, of the blood of a slain God, but it is spoken into existence and declared good. The sun and the moon are not deities, but are just lights put in the sky. And that's kind of where I see this smack talk. Yeah, and you'll see that more, and also in Egypt with account of Pharaoh and Moses, blah 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 blah. There's a lot of smack talk going on there of, oh, you worship this sun as a god. Hey, our God made that. That's not even a god. So these are them's fighting words.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have this framework of understanding Genesis as God's baby talk to us and God's smack talk against these existing cultures, I think we can let it stand on it, kind of on its own terms, and not try and ask questions of it that it's not trying to answer. And then we also, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, let me switch to here. So why were we made? I was going the wrong way. Again, Gary Larson, The Far Side.
What does it say on the thing?
Uh-oh.
No, but what's the, on the, whatever row?
Humans.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay, I just can't read it. I took my glasses off, so that's also not helpful. But,
How about now?
Even oh, okay, it is better.
Honey, God dropped some honey, and it scared some humans away.
It looked like Winnie the Pooh's, honey pot, a little bit.
So,
Can I ask a question?
please.
And, this is just space. In the picture, no, it's just a real quick question. In the picture with the little thing, and there's waters above the
Yep.
earth, where is space in there?
Oh,
Because it's clouds, sun, moon,
yep. So
And
in
then-
both cosmologies,
where's the space?
this is space. So all the stars, the sun, the moon, and the sky, they are
So you're
underneath
telling
the
me
water.
that space is as big as it is, and then
And the water's above
the
that.
other's on the
Well,
other
they didn't
side?
have good telescopes back then. Yeah, so it's this dome idea.
The dome's great. I hate space. Yeah. That's all.
And all the firmament, this thing that keeps out the waters above, all that you can see in the sky is underneath that.
Okay.
So imagine you are in the Jim Carrey movie,
Truman Show.
The Truman Show. Thank you.
We were just talking about it.
Yep.
Full circle.
Yep.
I guess not.
Half circle. So it's essentially the Truman Show of you're inside of this giant studio with lights, and that giant studio is keeping up the water above.
Mhm.
And every now and then, this is kind of getting a little sidetracked, but every now and then God's going to open the windows or the doors of heaven, and the water's going to come down. That's in the flood account with Noah. It's God opened the window. I don't know verbatim, but it's like God opened the doors to heaven so that water came and flooded the earth. Kristen.
Okay, so just because I grew up Catholic,
Mhm.
where did purgatory fit into this?
That's a great question. We're going to get there in 2 sessions.
Alright,
Ish.
alright.
In 2 sessions-ish. Because you can see in here, if you can read it, it says Sheol or Abaddon underneath earth.
Yeah.
Underneath the earth is the underworld. That's the realm of the dead. Where do people go when they die? They go to the underworld. And quite literally, you're digging holes in the ground, and people are going into that ground there. So there's this idea of these people are in the underworld, and what happens there? That's a big question that we're going to go get into. But right now we're just in Genesis. I am going to say now, I don't know a lot about purgatory. and that is not going to be my area of
That's
expertise,
okay.
but
I'm
we're going to talk
not an
about it.
expert either.
Okay, great.
You didn't have to read Dante's Inferno?
No, I have not seen that. I did see some like depictions of that in some cathedral somewhere,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool and terrifying. But anyways, we're moving on. Things are happening. So, why were humans made? We were made, first, let me do a reading. Here we go. So God made mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and he said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food." God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. I'm doing a little skipping here. Let's see here. The Lord God formed a man from the crust of the ground, from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being. Then God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of man's ribs, and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and brought her to the man. Then the man said, "Now this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She will be called woman, for she was taken out of man. And that is why a man leaves his father and mother, and is united to his wife, and they will become one flesh." Adam and Eve were both naked, and they felt no shame. So, reading that, why were we made? According to the Genesis account,
Fellowship with God.
boom. Yes.
Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever.
Some Heidelberg Heidelberg, or is that Westminster?
Westminster.
Okay. Let me get to my notes, make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be. Okay, so we were made for fellowship with God. Why would a God who has existed eternally, is outside of time, can speak anything into being, why would this God create? Was God lonely? Does God need little beings to praise God in order to feel good about themselves? Classically, the answer would be no. God is triune, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and there's this relationship within the Trinity, and God is satisfied with the relationship that God has with God's self. So if God is satisfied with the relationship that he has, that God has, why create? Any answers? Any thoughts?
Is it kind of like a married couple, they want children even though they know how much trouble they're gonna be? I mean, why?
Which children are you thinking about?
Not specifically, just in general.
My brother Jason, who many of you know, once said, I think it was Jason who said, the only time the cops are in our neighborhood is when they're bringing Topher home. I'm Topher, by the way. So I do know I brought some sleepless nights to my mother. So I'm going to quote, for those philosophy people out here, anyone know the name William Lane Craig? Anyone hear of him? He had some good things to say here that really stood out to me. He said that the act of creating is for the creature's benefit, for our benefit. Not God's, as God is completely self-sufficient. So we are created for fellowship and worship of God, not in order to boost a petty God's ego, but because God desired that creatures would know and enjoy fellowship with God. Mic drop. Another theologian I adore, Preston Sprinkle, he gave the analogy of when Adam is naming all these creatures, he got this kind of like this picture of a parent on Christmas Day saying like, I want to give you all these things, and hey, what are you going to call it? I do this with my kids all the time. They got their little toy dinosaur. I'm like, oh, what are you going to, they're like, Daddy, we should name this. I'm like, what do you want to name it? And they often go, Bobby. Bobby is the name of just about anything, or dinosaur, you know, it's like quite literal. Similarly, like there's this picture of this loving parent creating children that are loved, declared good, and saying, hey, what are you going to do with this stuff? What do you want to call that? A giraffe? What about that thing with the long neck and those really giant legs? Like, what should we call that? Okay, cool. Sounds great, buddy.
Okay.
Yes,
Can I say something?
please,
I'm gonna be real honest.
go for it.
So the story we just read, like, I feel my heartbeat elevate
Mm-hmm,
even when I hear you read it,
mm-hmm,
because my own experience with this text and how it's been interpreted and how it's been used
mm-hmm,
is the root of a lot of evil
mm-hmm,
that has come through in my life and in this culture, right? So when, like, you're asked for, why are we made?
mm-hmm,
I think in this story it depends on if you're the man or the woman,
mm-hmm,
if you're the human or the non-human.
mm-hmm.
I think it's very difficult for me to understand, like you have man who's made for fellowship with God, and then woman who's made for fellowship with man. You have the language of like fill the earth and subdue the earth,
Mm-hmm.
name the animals because you are the boss of the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jenny,
so-
you're about 2 slides ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please, keep going, keep going.
It's such a like, I don't know, it just gets me worked up.
Yeah. I meant to give this disclaimer before, about half an hour ago. We're going to be talking about some sensitive stuff. Hell, sexism, racism. And we're getting there. Particularly the language of a suitable helper. And how that phrase, Eve being this suitable helper for Adam. And how that has been interpreted. And how it has been abused and used to subjugate. And I believe that if rightly understood, it does not elevate, or it does not subjugate, but it elevates and puts man and woman on the same plane. But we're going to get there. Is that good? Do you have any other thoughts or questions right now?
I'm sorry that I jumped you ahead.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. I literally, it's just the embarrassment of like literally as I wrote some of this stuff, I'm like, I know when some people hear this phrase, it's going to be a trigger.
Yeah. Specifically of me. We've had this discussion.
Yeah. So, I thought
You
specifically.
knew it.
No. So we're going to get there, and I am probably going to pull a Ken in Barbie and try and
Please do.
assume that I've, solved patriarchy when I literally just came to the conversation. But this is why I say this is a conversation. Mel.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about too, like, as you were describing this, is like, so you said that, like, he has fellowship, like, he has perfect fellowship and is content within it, and then, like, so then, like, the purpose of creation, like, what's the purpose of that? And that the purpose is for the creatures to be able to also enjoy fellowship, right? And to have that, but then it's like he needed to invent this whole separate thing. So that was like at first where my head went, but then what that then had my head go to is like there's things that I have experienced the joy of that because I have experienced it, it has made me want it for others. Like, so like, I'll like people I don't even know. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want people to know this. Like I just want people, and so it just made me think about one. Does the Lord create for creation's sake, like because we are creative beings and like He's a creator, and so like creation for the sake of creating, but then also the fact that then like in so doing, does it then offer an opportunity to like be like, oh my gosh, this fellowship thing that I'm enjoying with like the Spirit and Jesus, like, you know, and the Son, like, is this like beautiful, powerful thing, and like I have this power to create, and so like why not like revisit this and like and get to watch it, right? Like when I think about things that I have gotten to help people also experience that I loved, and then they get to see it and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you introduced me to this, and then I get to watch it. I have this like pride of like it's a similar thing of like watching kids like naming things, right? Like and just seeing it through them. And so anyway, I just was thinking about that in the midst of this, and I don't know that I even have a question, but I just
That's
wonder.
great. Thoughts are welcome too.
Yeah.
Observations are welcome.
Yeah. I just was having new observations I hadn't had before, I guess, like as we're talking more about this, so.
Thank you. So we're gonna get to some of the juicy stuff shortly. But we were made for fellowship with God, fellowship with people, the
Fellowship with Earth.
fellowship with planet. There you go. So have fellowship with God. You guys are going to have a unity and purpose, and they're both given the task of caring for the planet. Caring for the planet, or given the task of subduing the earth, or ruling over the living creatures. As Jenny started pointing out, we can think of plenty of examples of how the language of subduing has been abused. Burning through the earth's resources. We can think about how ruling over animals has been abused, like animal cruelty and the ways that we essentially get our, how we handle the animals that we have and think of them as means to an end. Ultimately, it's the idea of exploiting the earth. Hey, this earth is here for me to subdue, to do whatever the heck I want with it, and these animals, whatever, kick the dog, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how we raise our cattle or our chickens or whatever, as long as I am getting fed. That's all that matters, right? I'm going to say no. The idea in there is not one of an exploitative relationship within this partnership of Adam and Eve, nor with their relationship of the planet or the creatures, but they are essentially stewards of the king. This is what we're going to get to. Stewards entrusted with caring for God's creation. There's a lot more we could say there. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving. And we are going to get more to the relationship between man and woman and kind of the suitable helper patriarchal language. That's coming up here shortly. But to get there, we're going to ask the question, what are we? Well, we were, let me see, I don't remember my slides work. We were brought into existence. There's no language of God took the souls that y'all have and he put them in some bodies. It's God got in the dirt. He got his hands dirty, took some mud and some breath. He breathed in it. He formed humankind. They didn't exist before. They're not made from a violent act. It's dust and breath. It's not clay and the blood of another slain God. Declared good. Free beings in that Adam and Eve were free to have fellowship with God or not. But they are also dependent beings. They depended on God, who provided the tree of life to remain alive. Without access to the tree of life, they would eventually die. Edward Fudge wrote, a man with a great name, since humans did not exist until God formed them and gave them life, each moment of life is God's immediate gift of grace. We cannot exist even for one moment apart from God who made us. Oh, there you go. There's the quote.
I might have missed a line or something. So we're free and independent?
Yes. So, thank you. I had a great line that I came up with an hour ago, 2 hours ago, that I was going to talk about how like there's this cool thing where we're free and independent. So we are free in that we are free to have fellowship with God, free to stay connected to the source of life, or not. We're not automatons that are robots, but have the option to remain connected essentially to the source of life, God, in this case, exemplified through or like through the means, like the language of the tree of life. But we cannot exist apart from God. So God creates us, and it's in a way it's like, hey, God creates us and gives us the choice to remain alive or not. We have the freedom to follow or not, to worship or not, to obey or not. Hey, obey me. Hey, here's this tree of life. You can eat of that. You can stay alive. Here's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat that. And they have the ability to go and eat of the tree.
Are you talking about spiritual life or physical life? Because we have the choice to live apart from God and still breathe.
Yes. And that is a huge conversation that we are, I keep saying this, I'm sorry to say this again. And
Sorry,
please,
but Edward
please,
fudged.
please bring those up, because that is, go ahead, were you say something about Edward?
Well, he just said, like, we can't exist for one moment apart from God who made us, and I'm finding that there's some contradictions
So
in the physical aspect.
So the question is, if I understand where you're coming from, a lot of the conversation that we're going to get to around the question of what is hell is how do you define life? How do you define death? For people like John MacArthur, the quote that we read off the beginning, everyone lives forever, and the language that the Bible uses about hell being a place of death, death in life is about a quality of relationship. Are you alive in relationship to God, or are you dead? You're physically beating. You're physically alive. Your heart is beating. Blood is flowing through your body. Air is coming in, but you're dead in that you're dead in your sins. You're dead in your trespasses. This language of death as a quality of relationship. You're either alive in relationship with God or dead apart from Him, but still existing. I am going to claim that that is not a helpful framework. There's language, there is language and there is truth to that idea of, hey, I'm really alive now because I'm in Christ and I have this wonderful fellowship with God and it's so life-giving. Yes, absolutely. But then the other side of the conversation, or the other viewpoint is, no, life and death is ultimately, are you conscious or not? It's not about quality of relationship, it's do you exist? And that's where we're gonna get there. This is just kind of setting the groundwork for what I'm gonna try and deliver on later. But that's where the conversation starts, is in the day you will eat of it, it says, in the day you will eat of it, you will surely die. Well, Adam ate of it, but he didn't drop dead. Eve ate of it, but she didn't drop dead. So therefore, life and death must be dead immediately when they bit that, right? Therefore, life and death must be a quality of relationship thing. I'm going to argue otherwise. But we'll get there. I'll give you the spoiler. It would be, when you eat of this, your death will be certain, essentially. It's kind of like if you continue to eat and eat, you will get bigger. It's not like you're going to balloon up immediately. It's if I continue to eat and eat unhealthy, yeah, that's going to affect me. Go ahead, Nate.
Wouldn't the word eventually be thrown in there to shed light into the same idea?
Great question. That's a debate, and there's people who are going to say that if what I'm claiming was the case, then it needs to be more explicit. So we'll get there. Is that good?
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to.
So we're also made in the image of God. What is the image of God? Is it physical capabilities? Hey, I can jump, I can bend, I can punch my arms. Is it physical characteristics? I have 2 legs, I have 2 hands, I got 10 fingers, so does God. And God has you know, well, am I sure? I would say, we don't know what the invisible God looks like. No, I would say it's not about physical characteristics. And if we start to claim that it is about, say, our physical bodies, our characteristics must mean that God has these things, or that we have this rational mind and we can make we have really good cognitive ability. What do we then say about someone who has severe mental handicaps? I don't know if that's the technically correct term to use. Forgive me if it isn't, and if there's a better term to use, please let me know. But what about someone who can't string a sentence together, or as they age, have severe dementia? Are they no longer in the image of God because they're not is cognitively there? Or is it that we have this immortal soul? Some people have argued that to be made in the image of God is to reflect this part of God's essence, or one of his attributes would be the better term. But there's nothing in the text that would suggest that. And there's many other attributes of God: his omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence. He's all powerful. He's all present. He's everywhere. He knows all things. That's big words for those things. We're not, as far as last I checked, I am not all powerful. I am not everywhere, and I don't know all things. But maybe I have an immortal soul, because you can't prove me wrong. But the idea of an immortal soul is nowhere in the text, and I would argue is explicitly argued against, essentially, but that would be in the fall. We're going to talk not the fall time of year, but the fall when sin enters the world.
Is that what C.S. Lewis is saying though in the beginning?
He is.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis is claiming, C.S. Lewis and John MacArthur are arguing from the assumption that we have this immortal soul that cannot die, that will live on forever. You can kill this body, but the soul is going to live on. You can throw me into hell, but my soul is going to live on. Or I'll go into heaven where I'll live on. So this immortal soul that cannot be destroyed is the assumption. And some people are going to argue that we have this immortal soul, and they're going to point to the Genesis account to do so. But they're wrong. So there you go. I say humbly. Please know, at times I don't know what I'm talking about sometimes. And there's plenty of things where if I say something with too much confidence, or like, hey, here it is, and you got to swallow it, you can push back. And also know that I'm trying to offer an understanding, a framework. This is not the framework. This is not the only one. About every topic that we've talked about so far, there's many, 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 many other sincere, faithful Christians who think differently. So, anyways, let's move on. Ultimately, I'm going to argue, and many others would argue, that to be made in the image, the language of the image, the selem, is interpreted as an idol. Like the little idols that you'd see that represent a deity, and the people would bow down and worship. Similarly, there's ultimately some way that we have an undeniable quality that points to our Creator. We are visible representations of an invisible deity. And the language of fill the earth and subdue it, go multiply, that's this proclamation that all the world can see, these little idols, as evidence that there is a God, that there is a Creator who loves the world. Preston Sprinkle said something I really like. I think I have it up there. Yeah, there it is. Our very visible physical presence on earth is a manifestation of Yahweh's reign over creation. Our bodies are essential to who we are. Our bodies are essential to our identity as divine image bearers. The image of God gives equality. There are no qualifiers for who's in and who's out. Man and woman are made in the image of God. It's not these specifically Hebrew people It's not just like some other accounts would use the language of made in the image of God, and that was typically reserved for a king, a male king. He is the image of God. He is the representation, this physical representation of the invisible deity. But all humanity is made in the image of God. The only qualifier is being human. So in Genesis, we read, whoever sheds human blood whoever sheds human blood by a human. Why can't I read it? Can someone read this for me, please? Anyone?
Whoever sheds human blood by a human, his own blood is to be shed. Because God made human beings in his own image.
So there's this sanctity, thank you, Nate, tripping up on that. There's this sanctity of life. You need to protect humanity because it has value. And this, I would argue, a undeniable quality that, hey, we can't deny that there is something special about humanity. So when we want to kill people, when we want to subjugate people, we're going to use dehumanizing language. I'm going to give a little warning. We're going to look at some, yes, dear.
So are you saying that the thing that makes us in the image of God is an undeniable quality that maybe people just sense?
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that there's an undeniable sense of value of human worth. That there's something that I can't deny that y'all are not things that I can just trample on or kill you and take your money just because I want. I mean, I could do that, but in doing so, I would have to justify it. I would have to find some rationale to dehumanize you to make myself be able to justify it. Does that make sense?
Yes. But you also said earlier that we need to treat, we need to care for animals and treat them fairly.
Mm-hmm.
So then what differentiates the care and love that we give animals versus the care and love that we give humans?
That's a great question. God gave the animals the breath of life, like he did humanity. But there is language that while all creation is loved by God and cherished by God, humanity is kind of the pinnacle of God's creative act. That humanity, unlike all the other creatures, specially reflects its creator.
They're the stewards of the earth, right?
Yes, to care for, thank you, Mark, to care for these other creatures that are loved by God, that are not to be exploited but to be cared for.
And also, because God created it in a way as a gift to humans, why would we want to abuse a gift that's given to us?
Amen. So the little trigger warning I want to give is we're going to look at some, if you guys are comfortable with it, or if you're not, you may excuse yourself or tell me to skip past it. It's nothing too graphic or anything like that, but war propaganda that has been used in the last 80 years by the U.S. Many of you will probably have seen this before. So we're going to look here. Do these enemies look at all human to you?
What in the world?
They're dehumanized.
Here, the Japanese soldier is depicted more like a cat. He's got claws, and just like he's got his claws in one hand, he's got the dagger in another, coming after this white woman here. The Japanese soldier here depicted as a mouse, and that's a World War I one. Let me read something from a book. Some dear friends got me a book called. Some dear friends got me a book called "For Such a Time as This" by Hannah Reichel, and she had a quote that just really hit the nail on the head. We're gonna look at these pictures and just hear these words. Pay attention to when words get switched out or start to change their meaning. Pay attention when the same stories are told over and over again, and when everyone starts using the same words. You can see whole wars on the horizon by the way they first show up in language. Words turn ideas into realities. We have most of our knowledge from hearsay. Saying something that is false out loud gives it the air of facticity. The more often we hear something said, the more likely we are to believe it. Speaking of us and them draws attention away from what we have in common or not. All that matters is being part of the us. Words reveal intentions and stoke action. Chanting fight, 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 or never surrender makes one feel strong and ready to strike. Talking about the immigrants as an invasion justifies using force rather than due process. Saying that the streets are full of murderers, rapists, and thugs legitimates police brutality. Portraying threats as poisoning the blood of our country necessitates exercising or even eliminating deadly threats. Violent language prepares the way for violent action. Pay special attention to dehumanizing language. Talking about people as animals, dogs, vermin, rats, or inanimate objects, tools, swamp, waves, changes our attitude towards them. Using non-human images erodes connection and empathy. It fosters feelings of contempt and disgust. Such language is a precursor to violence. Heavy stuff. Yes, Josh.
Sorry, I don't want to distract too much, but did you give a time period for the picture on the far right?
Sorry?
Picture on the far right.
That's World War I.
Who are they depicted in?
So that is the Germans, actually. That would be the Germans. They've got their hat that says militarism on it. They are
What does
coming
the bat say?
culture, and they're coming on. If you look where he's stepping, it says America. He's coming across. Essentially, it's depicting across the ocean
So
from
they're
a
coming
room.
across the ocean to beat up the white ladies?
They're going to take our ladies and they're going to beat us up.
Taking them.
They want the white ones.
The Germans are coming for us. They've ruined Europe, and they've landed on our shores, and they're here for our ladies, and they're going to destroy us with their culture.
Sorry.
All good.
Except for a great passage.
Thank you. The language of blood poisoning is language that. Any guesses who's used this language? And who before him?
Hitler.
Yes. Hitler wrote, "All great cultures of the past perished only because the originally creative race died out from blood poisoning." Similarly, our current president wrote on social media that illegal immigration is poisoning the blood of our nation. They're coming from prisons, from mental institutions, from all over the world. Let me take a look at that for a second. Similar, if you go currently to the ICE website, not as overt, but thinking about the language, not as explicit.
You don't have to be educated to do it.
Yeah. America has been invaded by criminals and predators. I had a video I was going to watch before. It was the ICE recruitment video, which is, "You swore an oath to protect your country, your city, and you're going to help us catch the worst of the worst, rapists, criminals, drug dealers." Video's removed. Can't do it. This is still available. Anyways, there's more material, but it is just about 7 o'clock, so I'm going to try and find a good note to end on, which is not here. We're going to have to start here. There's a lot to say here, and I don't want to try and do it in 60 seconds.
No.
I really appreciate you guys coming out here. If there's something that got your blood boiling, don't be afraid to say something to me. If you're welcome to tell me, "Chris, that's bullshit," and I'll say, it's the basement of the church, so it's fine. It's the underworld. It's the underworld of the church. There are things that I believe that I'm not comfortable with sometimes, that I don't like. Similarly, there's things that, hey, you know what? I think if we understand this properly, or in this context, I actually think it's really good and has a lot of positive things to say, or is elevating, but others may disagree. And there's room for that. I'm trying to do my best to present what I think is the consistent biblical account, and how if we look, instead of being running, for those of us who are trying to cling to a faith, or who have maybe grew up in the church and were turned off because of awful language around like sexism, racism, supporting the man that's currently in office as a man of God, if that has turned you away from the faith, that's my heart here, is I really want to show that, hey, you know what, this thing, who's seen the book of Eli? Mark and Josh and Nate. This book,
It's been a while.
who's got a Bible? Also thrown in the book of Eli.
Cursing, throwing a bunch of
This book that has been used to subjugate, to exploit, and harm others, I believe that if we look deeper at it and understand it properly, it actually elevates and gives us a basis to care for the world, to care for our neighbor, to fight for justice, and to speak out when there is oppression. But it's tough when a lot of, okay, I'm not going to say that word, when a lot of white evangelicalism, the waters that many of us swim in, is in a much different pond or water, or you're really going against the grain. It's tough. It's a struggle. But I thought I'd have some. If we got to the last slide, I had a really good place to end on. It almost made me cry when I read this quote yesterday. I'm like, oh, Maggie, I'm going to use this. It's really good. We'll get there next time. Thank you guys so much for coming here. Nate asked, he's like, hey, are you sure an hour and a half is going to be enough time to have food, do a discussion, and like 2 questions afterward? I'm like, probably. It wasn't. But I might change my scope of how much we're going to try to get through. I would like to have made more time for discussion. I had to kind of speed us along a couple times there. Sorry for that. But please come again, and let's continue the conversation. Next Sunday. So we're going to continue to do this Sunday nights. I'm hoping, I originally said probably 3 sessions. It's probably going to be more like 4 now. I'm thinking just at the pace that I go. It will probably, let's just plan on
Hopefully being done before the men's retreat.
It's probably going to be at least 4 sessions total, or at least 4.
I'm with 4 to 6 if like that means that we can have some discussion.
Rather pull it out. So
And you don't feel like you have to skip over it. Like I'm flexible.
Mhm.
yeah, so quite honestly, I'd be happy to make this a 6-week thing, 6 sessions. I guess I want to balance 2 things. I want to make sure there's room for conversation, and can we actually talk about things? I don't want it to just be the Krista Ward show. As much as I love my own voice and presenting, I do want to hear from you guys. I want to have conversation. So I want to have the room that we can do that, and if that means, hey, let's add a couple sessions, great, so long as everybody's down. I also want to say, like, hey, there's a lot of good stuff that I want to get through, and we're going to kind of have to do a flyby. But if you want to continue this conversation, come find me, or let's talk, or maybe a smaller group of us can do so. But I'm happy to do this for the next 6 months.
Well, it looks like if you're thinking about men's retreat weekend, then we've got 5 weeks. So we could still have that in mind. Also, maybe we can like know to like grab our food and immediately be ready to like eat and
Yeah.
watch.
That
right?
was-
Yeah, I'll be on time.
Yeah.
Oh, you're fine. Also, Rhonda, I'm so sorry. The email said 6 o'clock, and I forgot to tell you that. You came to me today, and I forgot to say that. I don't know if they said that in the announcement. I
They
wasn't in
did.
the sanctuary, but the emails had said 6. I'm so sorry. I did record this session because there's some people who want to be here who can't. So if you'd like to kind of see that first half hour, 15 minutes, I'll send that your way. And yes, next time, if you guys are open to it, we could show up a little bit earlier so that we can actually kind of hit the ground like at 5:15 with food on our plates at the tables. If you would, before you go, give me your email address. I only have some of this, and I lost Mel's. I lost yours, Mel.
I have to say something.
Go ahead, dear.
We're not gonna have pizza every week. 'cause
Yeah.
We can't afford it. So,
You can also contribute, like, would
Well,
people
yeah.
contribute to
Yeah,
the
is that, why don't we just all like Venmo you like
Nope.
$5 or
no. I was just saying I'll make food.
Yeah.
instead.
We've got we've got the cost of childcare.
Chili, like next week we can do chili.
Is it right? Maybe I'll help you.
Alright.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll start some emails.
I just sent you my email on 48.
Thank you.
In the message.
Oh, perfect.
I'll just message you.
Okay. Jason.
So regardless of the scope of the class, if you, like Chris said, if you want to dig in more to the content,
Mhm.
Chris is your guy. If you walk away feeling like this has stirred up something that you need to go somewhere with, because it is going to touch on, I mean, literally everything in the human experience. So, but specifically, if we're talking about things that are politically or some of these social issues, sex and gender, racism, if this stirs up something and you need somewhere to go with it, that is why I'm not just here tonight, but that's why I'm here in general. But I also represent, we have a fantastic team of shepherds here, a team that's equal parts men and women who are there specifically to support these questions and your own spiritual journey and your process and practical concerns. So if this just digs something up that you need to go somewhere, please talk to me or look me up another time, and I can, even if it's not me, I can connect you with someone.
Thank you. And let me reiterate, I am not here to speak, if I say something that you think is total BS, that doesn't necessarily reflect what Jason thinks. So that's why I kind of give the disclaimer of, I'm not here to speak for RLF. RLF is, we're united by our center, not, and there's people who come from a broad spectrum of beliefs, but we can all gather together. And I'm here to just be, as one person within that spectrum, offer what I believe, or some things that I think are helpful to think about. But if I say something that is the last thing I want to do is put up barriers for a community that is really intentional about trying to take them down and make a welcoming environment. So if I say something that rubs you the wrong way, please don't be afraid to tell me something. I really want to know that. And also, don't be afraid to just write off whatever I say is BS and just go talk to Jason or Justin or Jacqueline or anyone on the leadership team. Anyone, anything, any other questions, thoughts? Thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming. Yes, dear?
Oh, I got one more question.
Yeah.
Is this a salvation issue?
Oh, yes. You need to believe what I believe.
I think it's a good point to make when a Benton says that this really isn't